member-supported Hawaii Public Radio, and All Things Considered. I'm Dave Lawrence. Coming to town for the first time in a number of years, legendary band Kool and the Gang are back. We got to have Robert Kool Bell, bassist and founder of the band, on the program back when they were doing their Van Halen tour a few years ago, and he's graced us with a conversation again today to talk about their upcoming return to Hawaii. Aloha, Kool. How are you? Thanks for coming on board here.
All right, Dave. How are you?
I'm very good. Thank you for asking. And since that tour, what are some of the most exciting things that Kool and the Gang have been up to out on the road?
Well, we right after the Van Halen tour, we went out a couple months after that with Kid Rock. We did 10 shows with Kid Rock, and we did a couple shows with the Dave Matthews Band.
Nice.
And we were over in Europe, we did a little tour in France and also in Germany, and did a show with Bryan Adams. And we kind of been moving around, and actually we just finished a new single. We haven't had a record out in over about 10 years, and that single will be coming out next month.
And what inspired you to get recording again?
Well, you always want to get back out there again, get up home plate and see if you can get another hit. So it was time to try to do something. The single's going to be called Sexy, and the album hopefully will be out in September. But the single will be out next month. Right
in time, so you might be dropping that into the show when you're here in Honolulu.
We just might be doing that.
We'll keep an ear out for it for sure. And one quick question. Had you had any contact with David Lee Roth or any of those guys since that tour, or have you not heard from them?
Off and on, I think last year, well, I forget the group that went out with last year. But, yeah, we stay in touch from time to time to see what they're doing and what they're up to. And the same with Kid Rock as well.
Oh, that's nice. So you do stay in touch with them. That's good. That's good to know. One of the things about you that's for a lot of fans, it's been a long journey. And it started in the late 60s. It's gone forward since then. There have been a lot of different eras of the band, a lot of different sounds that you've come up with over that time. Really, a testament to it is the collaboration with you and your brother. Can you take us back to what originally drove you and your brother to form the Jazzy Acts before you turned it into Kool and the Gang?
Well, when we moved from Youngstown, Ohio, back in 1960, I was playing percussion at the time. And my brother was playing percussion too, but he picked up the saxophone. And then we met Mr. Dennis Thomas and Robert Spike Mickens and formed the group, the Jazzy Acts. My brother used to listen to, John Coltrane and Nat Adderley and a lot of the jazz artists, and I was listening to also, like the Ron Carters, Miles Davis, and that was the first influence, my brother and I. And that's when we got together with, like I said, Spike Mickens and Dennis Thomas and formed Jazzy Acts. And after that came the Soul Town Band, and that's when we met, Clayton Smith, Ricky West, George Brown, Woody Sparrow, and we came out, with our very first record, which was called Kool and the Gang.
And it was really such a departure, too. And before we get to that, not many people have a godfather like you do, Kool. Tell people how Thelonious Monk earned that role in your life.
Well, my father, his name was Bobby Bell. He's a boxer, featherweight, lightweight, rated in the top 5. Back in the day, but Miles Davis also wanted to box at one time, and he would come over to the gym and hang out and wanted to get in the ring and spar. My father said, well, I don't want to, you got to be careful, man. You get hit the wrong way, that lip, mess up your career. But they all lived in the same neighborhood. Thelonious Monk and my father lived in the same apartment building over on 61st and 11th Street. It's not there anymore, but so when I was born, he asked him, this would be my godfather because they're all friends.
Did you have further contact with him throughout your life, or was that it?
That was pretty much with Thelonious.
Yes.
Yeah, that was pretty much it. But Monk, his son, I met him from time to time. We would see each other from time to time.
And it was that same connection with your dad that brought Miles into your life. Miles interested in boxing, father, of course, with that end of his life. Of course, Miles did the record, the tribute to Jack Johnson. Was Miles somebody who you ended up having further contact with, or no?
We met a couple of times, and I would go see Miles when he was in New York. Yeah, sometimes. Yeah, I wasn't like hanging out or nothing, but yes, I did see Miles a couple of times on that time period.
And you had talked about that transition point when you meet these other guys, you have the jazzy acts, and then it becomes Kool and the Gang. Explain how your sound took that turn into that psychedelic soul that was really the original foundation of Kool and the Gang. What was it that inspired you? Like, what were you listening to that helped to make that sound the one you wanted to pursue? It was very original at the time.
Well, I would say it was starting with jazz, listening to some of the people I mentioned, the Miles Davis, Freddie Hubbards, and John Coltrane, Ron Carter's. And when we got involved with the organization Soul Town, we became the Soul Town Band because we were the band for a organization called the Soul Town Review. Now, the Soul Town Review was trying to be like the Motown Review. And so, being the band, we had to learn a lot of the Motown hits at the time. And it must have been about 15 to 20 groups. So we would have to learn these songs and back these groups up. When we left the Soul Town Review, we changed the name to Kool and the Flames. One of the master of ceremonies for the Soul Town Review would always fool around with my name because Kool was my nickname. Hey, that's Kool on bass, and et cetera, et cetera. And one night we came into a club in Newark, and he had a poster up and had Kool and the Flames. And so I had like a big ice shoe, Kool and the Flames. And anyway, we took on that name. But we changed that name because we had James Brown,
right,
famous Flames.
Right.
So we didn't want to have any problems with the Godfather. So we had just met our first real manager, and he had a pending deal with Delight Records. His name was Gene Red, and he had a company called Red Culture Records, and he had a production deal with Delight Records, which became our first label. And so we tried to come up with different names. So why don't we just call it Kool and the Gang, man? It seems like the sound is a mixture of jazz and funk, inspired by James Brown and at that time in Motown. And that's how it started with the name Kool and the Gang. And our first record was called Kool and the Gang. And then moving through the 70s, because our first record came out July 3rd, 1969. That's Kool and the Gang.
And that had Let the Music Take Your Mind on it, right?
Yeah, Let the Music Take Your Mind, Funky Man, Music is the Message. We had Sea of Tranquility, Breeze and Soul, and that was like a mixture of jazz and funk and R&B. We would take some of those songs and we did cover tracks. We did an instrumental version of Since I Lost My Baby by The Temptation. And we would mix it up like that, in the beginning of the 70s, and also coming up with our own new material as well.
It was really such a different kind of sound. There weren't a lot of people, and other people began to experiment similarly. I guess when you look at the beginning of Earth, Wind, and Fire sound, or some of the other, Funkadelic to some degree. But the thing that really, you had these horn arrangements that were so massive. I was just listening to Love the Life You Live last night, thinking about getting ready to do this. Who was it who was doing those horn arrangements and making those up?
That was my brother.
Ronald Bell.
Ronald Bell, yeah. Again, adding his jazz taste as well as the whole funk thing. Those were like the ideas he was coming up with. Love the Life You Live, Love and Understanding, Jungle Boogie, funky stuff. We come up with the main idea, and then the rest of us will fall in with what we felt should be in the group.
It was so psychedelic, too, huh? When you stop and think about it. Such a big departure. Even more psychedelic than JB. It bordered on Funkadelic to some degree.
Yeah. I mean, I remember when we met George Clinton when he was the Parliament. And early 70s. And he was also managed by Gene Red. And he had that song, I Just Want to Testify.
Right.
Yeah, by the Parliaments. And a couple of years later, like I said, we met him with Gene Red. And he had this Mohican-style haircut. This whole different look. And so we said, hey, George, what's up? What's happening? He said, man, I'm going Funkadelic. I said, Funkadelic, okay. So he started putting together this whole Parliament Funkadelic thing, which was a little James Brown, George, and things that he did with the Parliament and created Parliament Funkadelic. So he was influenced as well, yeah.
Yeah, really interesting how all you cats were kind of borrowing that psychedelic rock flavor, adding it to your thing, taking jazz and funk, adding some psychedelic rock, and out came these unique arrangements that you would have. And now that we're at the beginning of the summer, one of the songs that you were not playing on the Van Halen tour, understandably because the arenas, it was big arenas and maybe it wouldn't have fit so well, is Summer Madness. And it has to be one of the greatest Kool and the Gang songs, slow jam song. Can you take us back to the writing process on that, and also how you developed that signature live arrangement that came to be such a part of your sound, the one from Love and Understanding?
Yeah, well, Summer Madness, we were in the studio working on another album after Wild and Peaceful, and Robert Spike Mickens had this song called You Don't Have to Change. And about 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning, my brother was listening to the song, You Don't Have to Change. And then the vamp had a certain vibe to it, which he said, hey, I'm going to take a synthesizer solo over the vamp. And he saw it the next day. He played it for us. I said, wow. What are you going to call that? Well, let's just call it Summer Madness, because it happened in the summer, and, it was an experiment with the synthesizer at the time. They were just coming out. So one that was using it, I think it was 2600, and created Summer Madness. We didn't really know what type of hit was going to be. It had a jazz flavor to it, of course, and, it turned around to be a big record for us,
And then that live version, the arrangement that you would do live, and you're right about the keyboards were very pioneering, and it was very climactic and super, super psychedelic, note-bending kind of sound that he was coming up with there. How about those vocals? Then the live arrangement, it became very, very popular. Who did those vocals? Was that actually how you guys were doing it live at that point?
Yeah, we had 4 girls with us, and they went by the name of Something Sweet. And my brother had this idea, along with George Brown and myself and Charles Smith, to add the girls to the track. Because when we were in London, we played Summer Madness, and then we had a swing part to it. We had jazzed it up a little bit.
Right.
And then we had the girls, singing the background vocals. The same girls that ended up singing Ladies' Night. Some of the other tracks, yeah. And there it is. That created the live version of Summer Madness.
Was that just for that one gig, or was that something you were doing on tour?
That was from that one gig, and then we added it to the show.
Amazing.
Later on, we added it, yeah.
So really, that live version was almost like you were doing it in the studio, but live, because it was a brand new arrangement to have those girls doing that.
Right. You're right. Mm-hmm.
That's very interesting, because I've always wondered, I was like, man, that's so different than the original, yet it almost eclipsed the original, huh? I mean, that became the one that so many people really gravitated to. Oh, yeah, radio definitely was loving it, because we went from the basic Summer Madness to the swing. When Pick It Up started swinging, the girl, do-do, 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 it was just a whole different vibe happening. Yeah. It was incredible. I mean, to this day, that song gives me chills. It's such a very, very powerful arrangement. Whose idea was that to bring those girls in, and who arranged their part?
That was my brother and George Brown, another original member of the group.
We owe your brother a lot, it's starting to sound like.
Well, he was the pioneer. He was the one that was coming up with all these great ideas. Now, Charles Smith, too. I mean, the late Charles Smith, he passed about 5 or 6 years ago. He was another one that would come up with some nice, and those guitar parts were all Charles' guitar parts.
And the guitar was very important on those early songs. It's good you give him credit. Is that you on that live recording going, Ronald Bell on synthesizer?
That's Dennis Thomas saying that. That's DT, Dennis Thomas.
That's just some classics.
He's another original member, yeah.
Yes, he is. He's a monster. Wild and Peaceful. Share a little behind the scenes into that. Very trippy back and forth keyboards in your ears, that charging bass line you've got. How much did you get involved in the arranging on that, or is that, again, another one of your brother's works?
Well, that was a combination of the 4 or 5 of us, my brother and, of course, myself. And then we would go back and forth and get into the whole jazz move from time to time and come up with different tracks. And some of them we recorded and some of them we didn't. But Wild and Peaceful was one of the ones that we did. And, the 3 hits that we had on the A side of the album was, of course, with Jungle Boogie, Hollywood Swingin' and Funky Stuff. And then we came up with an idea to do this track called Wild and Peaceful. And it was just basically us just grooving, because a lot back in the 60s, we do a lot of jazz stuff, and we'll just do grooves, and those grooves last for about maybe 30 minutes and hanging out, in Jersey City. And so every now and then we'd say, hey, let's just groove on this. And guys took solos, and there it is. Again, that was another surprise to people when they flipped the Wild and Peaceful album to the B-side, because I think Wild and Peaceful was about 9 minutes.
Yeah, what you're saying is that's a great example of how people used to use the A and B side to have different kind of flavor. So what you're saying is you had all these more hit-oriented, shorter, tighter funk songs with recognizable segments of them, and then on the B side, when you flip the album over, you kind of went out on an exploration, if you will.
Absolutely, yeah. That's how it happened with that track, yeah.
No, that's a...
And then, because Summer Madness came after that. See, Summer Madness came after Wild and Peaceful. And that was from the Lighter Worlds album when we did Summer Madness.
Yeah, they were really exploratory numbers, a variety of them that you laid down. And then your sound, there was an evolution, right? And it went from this jazzier, psychedelic funk side into what became your better-known sound of hits, perhaps the things that younger fans know about. Although Quentin Tarantino sure opened up the early part of Kool and the Gang by including you in Pulp Fiction. But when you think about that evolution from the jazzier, psychedelic funk side into what became more of your hit side later on, your hit, I don't even know how to describe it, more, I guess, radio R&B and less trippy jazz. What influenced that evolution to take place?
Well, we were out on tour with the Jackson 5 at the time, and one of the promoters, he came up to us. He said, "Listen, I like what you guys are doing on the tour." He said, "You guys ever thought about getting the lead singer?" And we said, "No, not really, but that could be interesting," because at that time you had Maurice White and Philip Daly from Fire, and Lionel Richie with the Commodores, and that was kind of like going on. And a lot of our tracks, our horns has always been like our lead singers, but the music itself was open for someone to sing lead parts. And that's when we decided to go ahead and experiment with that. And that's when James Taylor joined the band. And Yamir Diadalo, who was a producer for that first record, with JT Ladies Night album, And me coming from a jazz background, we thought, well, we this album gonna be kind of jazzy. But Amir said, no, you got to make room for the lead singer now. You got to work them horns around the lead singer. You got a focal point now.
Mm.
So we had to pull back on the jazzier side. But he was able, and we were able to keep our identity, with our very first record. Because, you still heard the Kool the Gang horns. You heard them a little differently.
Right.
But you heard them enough to say, sounds like Kool the Gang. Who's that guy singing, though?
It's really something, though. You've described it well, how this happened, because for fans who know all of the music, there's really a departure point, so to speak, and you're saying it was really upon the suggestion of this guy, and then once you hit it, I mean, you hit it so strong with that, I guess you just felt like you've got to come up with another one of these radio-friendly hits to continue.
Right. Now it's the race in the 80s, The name of the song, I came up with that because I was hanging out in New York, and over the weekend, Friday night, Saturday night, we were at Studio 54 or Regimes or some of those clubs. There was always a ladies' night, either Friday, Saturday. I said, hey, that might be a good idea for a song.
Right.
And we were working on this new record with this new singer, and George Brown had this group happening. And my brother was working. I said, well, why don't we just, call that ladies' night? I said, it's a good idea. So we all got together and started writing the lyrics. Not knowing that that was our very first record with a lead singer.
Right.
Ladies' Night was going to become the hit that it became.
Right.
That it became, yeah.
You're saying it was a shock to you, too, that it took off as massively as it did.
Oh, yeah. Frankie Crocker, when he was around in New York, he really he broke the record in New York. And, of course, it spread across the country. And that was a big one for a ladies' night.
Oh, big time. I mean, it's an enduring hit. And as we've described, it was part of this evolution in the band as you changed, made yourselves more mainstream, were able to bring your sound to a lot larger group of people. What about Celebration? Where did that come from?
Well, we had to back up what we did with Ladies' Night, and we were out in L.A. For the American Music Award, and we had I think we won 2 or 3 awards that night, and so we were celebrating. Actually, we were happy with the fact that we changed our career and got a lead singer and came up with this big hit, Ladies' Night. And the tag of Ladies' Night had the celebrate line to it. This is your night tonight. Come on, let's all celebrate.
Right.
And my brother said, wow, that's another song. So he went back and we came back and went to the studio. He had this down home sort of a groove with his guitar ring. And the guy started adding in Yahoo, so it went kind of to a country funk thing. And the lyrics were very simple. It was, come on, let's all celebrate. There's a party going on. And again, at that time, we experimented. We didn't know these songs were going to be huge hits like that. It's
amazing. And then to have that recognition so many years later, and it almost redefined the band to a lot of younger people who for a lot of them, that's sort of the beginning of Kool and the Gang for them, because they were not necessarily as familiar with that entire side of the band that came before it.
Right. I mean, the parents, they knew our music, and they would hand it down to the children, And I guess they say, Pops, what's that? What you listening to?
Right.
You know nothing about this, boy. All right, well, I want to know something about it. But it all kind of happened. I mean, just about 6 or 7 months ago, the Muppets did Jungle Boogie. Did a great job.
Unbelievable.
And the Muppets also did Celebration. So I had little kids in my neighborhood. The father said, that's Mr. Bell. That Muppet song you listen to, that's their song. Really? These kids like 4 or 5 years old. So now they're probably 15 to 16. That kind of stuff stuck with them, you know?
That's a great point about what you're saying is that the Muppets were also taking one of your earlier style of songs and repopularizing that for you, too, which, again, it comes back to, in so many ways, Pulp Fiction, true, with bringing that song.
That's another one, yeah, right, that you mentioned, yeah, with Quentin Tarantino, with Jungle Boogie, yeah.
Did they have to ask your permission? How does that work? Did they say, we'd like to use this song, or do they just do it and you get paid?
No, they asked. They went through the record company and the publisher, Warner Chappell Music. And, of course, you know, the publisher cuts the deal, and the rest is history. Another big one was Will Smith with Summer Madness. He turned it to Summertime. And that became a huge record for him. He won a couple of Grammys that night with that song. And
then it sends people looking for the original, is what you're saying. It helps to revive the original.
Right. Mm-hmm.
That makes a lot of sense. Just a couple more questions. I'll let you go. You mentioned the Jacksons. Did you ever have any interesting or important contact with Michael over the years, or any kind of feedback from him on your sound?
I didn't, but my younger brother, not Ronald. My brother Amir, he lived out there with them for about a year, so he knew Michael and the whole family and Jermaine and all of them. You know, he used to stay at the house out there and all that, so he would see Michael often, in between going on and touring and everything. And so Michael would come around every now and then because of my brother Amir. Matter of fact, I remember one show he came to at Radio City Music Hall, and we were rolling at that time. We had the ladies' night and celebration and Too Hot, get down on it. And he wanted to come to the show, so he dressed up like Abraham Lincoln, big hat and long beard, sat right in the middle of the audience. Nobody knew who he was. And then he came backstage and we talked about it, yeah.
That's funny. You definitely, it would have attracted a lot of people because you had already established yourself so much prior to that. How did you get your nickname? Right. How did the people start calling you Kool?
Well, I grew up in Youngstown, Ohio, a little country town, and to Jersey City back in 1960. And in Jersey City, guys had nicknames. And I was trying to fit in, with what was going on, because you had Jersey City, New York City, Newark, you had that sort of a vibe going on. And there was this guy who called himself Kool, but he spelled it with a C. I said, I like that name. I'm going to take that as a nickname. But I said, well, I'm going to change that C to a K. And that's how it happened. Not knowing that was going to be the beginning of Kool the Gang. That was me just trying to be hip in the street.
Right. But it stuck. And is that what most people call you?
Yeah, that's what they call me now, yeah.
That's amazing. It is amazing. And it was your folks. I mean, would you give credit to your dad for the fact that the two of you ended up picking up instruments to begin with when you were so little?
Yeah. I mean, because of the type of people that was around, and my grandmother. My grandmother played piano around the house, and different albums that my grandmother would play, and my dad. Because he. Matter of fact, when I was born, he was boxing in Cuba. At that time, a lot of the fighters would go down in Cuba and box. And you had a lot of jazz musicians that was playing in Cuba, like Dizzy Gillespie, Miles, all those guys who would hang out. And so when I was born, he called and told my mother he was in Cuba. And I said, what's your name, the baby? Well, of course, Robert Jr. He said, yeah, but I have another name for him also. So my mother said, well, what? He said, Dodo Monteroso El Riquico. She said, what? Dodo Monteroso was a bass player, keyboard player, and a Cuban bass player and a keyboard. He didn't know I was going to play bass. And he named me after the bass player.
Wow.
Yeah, Dodo Monteroso.
Real foresight from your dad.
Yeah.
In so many ways, huh?
Oh, yeah. He was out there. He was a Rolling Stone, too. He was on the road. He was never home either, just like I tried to be home a little more around my kids. When he was fighting all over the world,
Did he end up having a lot of great pride, though, in what you accomplished?
Yes, he did, yeah. We didn't see him as much as we would have liked to have seen him, but, yeah. But that's how it is. You know how it is in this business. You're out there trying to do your thing and constantly on the road and going all over the world and trying to stay out of trouble. And, that's show business.
Yep. No, that is. Well, we're looking forward to you coming back to the islands. It's going to be great to see you, and I'm hoping that you'll drop your new song into the set if it's ready at that time. Maybe, is it all right? I'll reach out to your manager. We'll do a little follow-up when you come to town just so I can say hi.
Yeah. As a matter of fact, we were just inducted into the New Jersey Hall of Fame. They just had the ceremony about 2 or 3 weeks ago. And in our hometown, where my brother and I grew up at, right on that corner of Maple Avenue and Pacific Avenue, we just got the street changed to Kool the Gang Way. So we got a street in our name. Right when the old country boy came from Ohio and stayed in that first house on Pacific Avenue and Maple Street is now called Kool the Gang Way.
It's a beautiful thing, brother. It is a beautiful thing. Really dig that. Maybe there would be some way we could sit down with your brother, too.
Yeah. He doesn't travel that much anymore, but you know what? He did the whole Van Halen tour.
Exactly. That's what I was going to say.
Yeah, he did the whole... Well, we're getting ready to do a tour, our first tour in a while, since the JT days. And we're doing a tour with Live Nation called Keep the Funk Alive Tour. And it's Kool the Gang, Bootsy Collins, Morris Day and the Times, and Dougie Fresh. You go up on our Facebook website, you'll see the cities. We're starting off with 8 cities, and that could grow. Yeah, but it's called Keep the Funk Alive Tour.
And your brother going to come out on that or no?
Oh yeah, he's doing the whole. Yeah, he's coming out for that one.
And for Hawaii?
I don't know if I can get him to come to Hawaii or not. Maybe.
Well, I hope so. I hope he can come out because he's got to get some credit for all these amazing things he put into the sound of the band. It's really cool what he did and the team up that you guys had. And it's an amazing thing. I'm very proud of you and grateful that you're still keeping the band alive. I had so much fun seeing you with Van Halen. It was unbelievable.
We had fun with that one. Yeah.
You blew the place apart, man. You blew it apart.
Yeah. Well, I have to give credit to David Lee Roth because he had the vision. Because when this came down, we had just did the Glastonbury tour over in London. And not Glastonbury tour.
The festival.
Yeah. And that last week, it was like Coldplay and, U2 and a lot of rock groups. And David, I don't know if he was at the show or he saw us on BBC. And he said, when he saw that, he said, hey, that's what I want to open up for. So he called Eddie and his brother said, hey, I got the perfect group for, and their tour was a 20-year reunion tour, celebration tour. And I said, who? He said, Kool the Gang. I said, what? What do you mean, Kool the Gang? He said, yeah, Kool the Gang. So he told me, he said, hey, man, he said, back when we first started, we used to play funky stuff from Jungle Boogie in the clubs out in L.A. And also, there was a club that his uncle owned in New York. I'm trying to think of the name of the club. We used to play there too in the beginning.
Right.
It was owned by his family.
That David's uncle owned.
Yeah.
Yeah, I forget the name of that too. I had heard that. Too.
Yeah.
I had heard of that. Yeah, that's good stuff.
And the last thing he said, hey, he said 60% of my audience are ladies. I said, well, I didn't know that. I said, wow, it's more, more rockheads. And he said that, and you'll find that when you see our concert, you'll see the audience will be 60% ladies. And he was right, because at those concerts, the ladies were there. And we started our show off on the rock side, what you saw. But we got the ladies' night, get down on it, funky stuff. Get down on celebration. Those ladies got up and started partying. So those hardcore Rockies that didn't want to move, when they jumped up and said, you better get down on it, because you came here with me. and David, he knew that. See?
Well, he was pushing the envelope. There was no question that a tour like that had not been done in a long, long time, where you put that kind of hard rock band on the bill with a band like yours. That was groundbreaking in so many ways. It was very much, it was like something Bill Graham, the promoter, would have done. I'm sure you remember Bill.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, we definitely remember Bill. But yeah, so, and actually, I was told from Kid Rock, when he saw us in Detroit, that's when he said, I got to have Kool the Gang with me. He said, I just saw us rock with Van Halen. And what happened was Sammy Hagar, who used to be the singer when David Lee left and came back, was doing a tour with Kid Rock. And then something happened with the sponsors that couldn't come together. And he needed a group right away. He said, man, I just saw Kool the Gang with Van Halen. Man, go get them guys, man. And just so happened we had 10 dates available. And we ended up doing 10 shows with Kid Rock.
Unbelievable. And it came out because of the Van Halen tour.
Yep. Well, so going back to what you said with David and his vision in terms of doing that kind of a tour, opened up the door for other guys to look at it,
Oh, exactly. It was very visionary what he did, and that's why the only guy I can imagine Bill Graham up in heaven must have been smiling when he saw that kind of different kind of bands on one bill. Just nobody would have had the guts to do that otherwise.
Yeah, right.
I really, really appreciate it. Did you have fun today? Did I ask you stuff you don't always get asked?
You did. You dug deep.
Good.
That's good. All right, Dave.
God bless you, brother. I'm giving you a big hug. Stay safe. I'll see you soon.
Okay, then.
Take care.
You too.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Aloha. It's Robert Kool Bell from Kool and the Gang. You're in a great place with my friend Dave Lawrence on HPR. They get down.